very honored Frater B2's Esoterinerd podcast, episode 116. A simulcast, the second simulcast between Esoterinerd and Praxis Behind the Obscure, this time featuring David Wright. David wrote to me a while back with a lot of questions, about Hinduism, Buddhism, Hermeticism, Golden Dawn, Wicca. Did I mention Taoism? And a little bit about Santeria. And so I answered as best I could, and then I asked him if he would like to be a guest on the podcast, and that we could talk in person about some of these things. And then I spoke to my friend Ryan over at Praxis Behind the Obscure. He is a fellow Californian who has relocated to Asia, basically permanently as far as I know, who runs a podcast on esoteric and occult subjects. Did you know that we're a demographic? We're not one of a kind. There's at least two of us. Are there others that we don't know about? I don't know if I want to know, because I don't know if I'd get along with everyone like me, but I get along pretty well with Ryan. And I get along fine with Ryan. And so it was fun. I mean, I'm speaking to you after we just wrapped up with the conversation. We also had a special surprise guest. I'll just leave it at that. In the middle of it, who came in and spoke for a little while. And so before we get to that interview, we'll revisit our segment.
The REAL Rosenkreuz Orden.
Thought that one was finished, eh? No, not quite. Now, the Confessio Fraternitatis was here. The whole thing, you can hear the whole thing with Zelda music in the background, which fit very well with the sort of inspirational, adventurous, sort of childlike wonder and the adventure inspiration. Did I mention these things already? It was a really beautiful thing. I enjoy listening to that episode. I enjoy reading the Fama. The Confessio, on the other hand, came out a year later, and basically, after they had poured their heart out, the first thing that comes to mind is like if you're like DMing a random person on, a stranger on the internet, and you just pour your heart out, right? This is a weird example. But their response is, let's say, less than enthusiastic, right? So then the next thing you say is, well, you're up, like that, kind of thing. So it's not quite that extreme, but basically it's definitely a little bit of a different tone in the Confessio. So rather than Zelda music, I've chosen to go with Mozart's Requiem, well, one of the Requiem type masses. And Frater Iod Tav has again recited the Confessio as he did with the Fama in the original German. The Confessio was actually first published in Latin, and then shortly afterward a German version was released, and then an English version. So you'll be hearing him recite just the very beginning, the first, I think, 3 minutes of the German version, and with me doing the English version with Mozart's Requiem in the background. Now, Frater Iod Tav had asked me, do you think that that's appropriate that, you play a Requiem Mass, a Mass that's supposed to be for some, for a funeral during the Confessio? And I said, well, yeah, I think that the golden age of Rosicrucianism, if there ever was one, kind of ended with the publishing of the Fama. And so the Confessio is sort of the first nail in the coffin, and the last thing that anyone can point to as a legitimate document coming from whoever these Rosicrucians were. And he said, well, if that's what you want to say, then I guess it is appropriate to play Mozart's Requiem. And so I decided moving forward I would be less cynical about that. But the Fama is a fresh, a breath of fresh air. And so I'll only subject you to 3 minutes of the Confessio this time around. Just for contrast, let me know if you can feel any kind of difference in tone between this.
Also, we found his Itinerario and Vita, whence this relation, for the most part, is taken. In another chest were looking glasses of diverse virtues.
And this.
Confessio Fraternitatis oder Bekanntnis der löblichen Bruderschaft des hochgeehrten
Confessio
Rosenkreuzes
Fraternitatis,
an die Gelehrten Europäer
or the
geschrieben.
confession of the laudable
Was
fraternity
unsere Fraternität
of the most
oder
honorable
Bruderschaft
order
aus Hiebe
of the
vor
Rosy Cross,
ausgefertigter Fama
written to
männiglich
all
zum
the
Ohren
learned
kommen
of
und
Europe.
offenbar gemacht worden. Das soll
Whatsoever
niemand für
is
leichtfertig
published
oder erdichtet
and
halten
made known to
achte.
everyone
Viel
concerning
weniger
our
aber als
fraternity
aus unserem
by
im
the
Dünken
foresaid
hergeschlossen und
Fama.
entstanden aufnehmen.
Let no man
Der Herr,
esteem
der Jehova
lightly
ist
of
es,
it,
welcher
nor
die
hold
Welt
it
nunmehr
as an
fast den
idol or
Feierabend
invented
erreicht und
thing,
nach
and
vollendetem
much less
Periodo
receive
oder
the same,
Umlauf
as though
wieder von
it were
Anfang
only
eilet,
a mere
den
conceit of
Lauf der
ours.
Natur
It
unbewendert
is the
und
Lord
was hiervon mit
Jehovah,
großer Mühe und
who,
unablässiger
seeing the Lord's
Arbeit
Sabbath is
bewirkt wurde,
almost at hand,
jetzt
and
unter
hastened
denen, die es
again,
nicht
his
achten
period or course
oder
being
wohl nicht einmal
finished
daran
to his
gedenken,
first beginning,
eröffnet,
doth
ändern
turn
aber,
about
die es
the
begehren,
course of
freiwillig
nature,
anbeut,
and
und
what
wenn es nicht
heretofore
begehren,
hath
gleichsam
been
auch
sought
zwinget,
with great
dass
pains
den
and
Frommen
daily
zwar
labor
alle
is
des
now
menschlichen
manifested
Lebens
unto
und
those
Seligkeit
who
gelehrt
make small
und des
account,
unbeständigen
or
Glücks
scarcely
und
once
der
think upon it.
Stimmigkeit aufgehoben,
But those which
den
desire
Bösen aber
it,
ihre Bosheit
it
und die
is in a
darauf
manner
gehörige
forced
Strafe
and
gemehrt
thrust
und
upon them,
gehäufet werden.
that thereby the
Ob
life
sie nun
of the
wohl
godly
keiner
may be
Ketzerei
eased
oder
of
einiges
all their
bösen
toil and
Beginnens
labor,
und Vornehmens
and be no
wider
more
des
subject
weltlichen
to the
Regiment bei
storms
jemand
of
verdächtig sein
inconstant
können,
fortune,
die
but the
wir
wickedness
sowohl des
of the
Orients als
ungodly
des
thereby,
Okzidents
with their due
des
and deserved
Mahomet und
punishment,
Baptist
be
lässt
augmented
wider unserem Herrn
and
Jesum
multiplied.
Christum verdammen,
Although we
obersten
cannot
Haupt
be
des römischen
by
Reiches
any
unser
suspected
Gebet,
of the least
Heimlichkeiten,
heresy,
große
or
Goldschätze
of any wicked
gutwillig
thing,
präsentieren
or
und
propose
anbieten.
against the worldly government.
Jedoch hat es
We
uns
do
für rechtsam
condemn
und gut
the
angesehen,
East and the
der
West,
Gelehrten willen
meaning the
noch
Pope
etwas weiter
and Mohammed,
hinzutun,
blasphemers
besser
against
auszuführen,
our Lord
ob
Jesus
irgend
Christ,
in der
and
Fama
offer
etwas
and
zu
present
tief
with a
verborgen,
good will
zu
to the
dunkel
chief
gesetzt,
head of the
oder
Roman
aus
Empire
gewissen
our
Ursachen
prayers,
gar ausgelassen
secrets,
worden wäre,
and great treasures of
hoffende,
gold.
hiermit die
Yet
Gelehrten uns
we
desto
have thought good
geneigter
and fit
zu unserem
for the
Vorhaben
learned's
so
sakes
viel desto
to
mehr
add
bequemer
somewhat
und
more to
williger zu
this,
machen.
and make a better explanation if there be anything too deep, hidden, and set down over dark in the Fama, or for certain reasons were altogether omitted and left out, hoping herewith the learned will be more addicted to us, and be made far more fit and willing for our purpose.
Well, I don't know about you, but I am thoroughly addicted. Okay, so yeah, moving forward, I'm going to be less... for those of you who don't know, I have this series, Am I Using Too Many Cards? The Buddhist book series. In episodes 7 and 12, I started getting really grouchy about how Mahayana was just making up a lot of crap that was distracting from the core philosophy that the Buddha brought to the world. And then in the follow-up episodes 8 and 13, respectively, I sort of apologized and retracted a little bit. Not really, but, sort of resolved to try to accept Mahayana as it is on its own terms, and not insist that it be Theravada, and not insist that it, stop calling Theravada Hinayana and reinventing the philosophy of the Buddha in order to make it more compatible with Christianity or whatever they were doing. So yeah, I'm going to try to do something similar moving forward. I'm not going to use Mozart's Requiem because that was really the only good part. I mean, not that Mozart's Requiem isn't good. It just doesn't go with the reading. There's a lot of high pitch singing and stuff like that just doesn't really work with this. So Frater Iod Tav had suggested some Handel or some Bach, something more from the era that the Confessio and the Fama were actually released, to kind of put people in the mood, of that time period and that place in the world. And so we'll probably go with that, and I'll try to be less cynical about that. So, without further ado, let's get to that conversation with David and Ryan at Praxis Behind the Obscure, shall we? Hello!
Hey!
Welcome to the Esoterinerd podcast.
Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. So how's the weather in Florida Keys this morning?
Pretty nice. It's, it is a nice temperature. It's usually nice this kind of year. Like,
yeah.
It's in the 70s.
Oh, cool. Okay. Very nice. I think it's similar here, but I've gotten used to Celsius over the past few years.
Oh yeah, I can much of the world they measure things differently than they do in the United States.
Yeah. United States was progressive for the first 10 minutes.
Oh, yeah.
Very nice. Very nice. So Ryan will be with us shortly. He's received the link as well. And yeah, I mean, I guess normally that, with the interviews, I'm interviewing the interviewee, but, feel free to ask me anything and I'll do my best, and we'll just see how it goes.
That sounds good.
Cool. So you have interest in Taoism, Hinduism, Vajrayana Buddhism, and Hermeticism.
Yeah, and Wicca.
And,
yeah, I don't know really about Santeria or the Afro-Caribbean religions at this point, because while they're beautiful and fascinating, number one, I feel my main passion lies with the East, the Hindu, Buddhist, and Taoist gods, as opposed to Orishas. I mean, I like the Orishas, but not as much as the Eastern deities. And with Santeria and other such religions is, if you become a priest in that religion, it often imposes taboos, restrictions on behavior.
Yeah, and you can't even work with the other Orishas, let alone other gods.
Oh yeah, it's not so much that. It's like you might get behavioral taboos, like, you can't wear a certain color or eat a certain food, right. Or maybe you might say no getting tattoos. Maybe it'll say no practicing, or no practicing polyamory.
Right.
And or even it could be something like don't go swimming in the ocean, or don't be in groups of 3, or it could be a lot of things.
Yeah. I have one friend, his name is Robert. He's originally, I think, I don't know, I think he was born in the US, but his family's from Taiwan. And he is part of a Taoist organization that has Zoom meetings. And I asked him on your behalf if, that was when he told me about the Zoom meetings. So after our conversation, I can maybe get you guys in touch. Are you on Facebook?
I am.
Okay, yeah. Well, I'll send you the link on email, and we'll work it out that way. And I can introduce you to him, and he can introduce you to that if that's something you're interested in. They're particular interesting.
Check it out.
Yeah, for sure. He brought me shortly before I left California. They were actually my old alma mater, my old Golden Dawn temple that I left back in 2013. Toward the end there, in those past few years, we're in one particular warehouse space in Baldwin Park, California, and his Taoist group was in the same complex. I mean, it was like across the street, but it was the same shaped building and the same type of door and everything. So it was a trip. They have these big warehouses in the back for, I don't know, big machinery or whatever people want to use it for. So of course, cults love it because they can make big, beautiful temples and big spaces for lectures and all that sort of thing.
Oh yeah, I remember I went to a meeting of Rosicrucians in Denver, and it was in kind of an industrial park. An industrial park.
Yeah, yeah.
I was there.
Was that Amorc or a different group?
Amorc.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, I like to tease them because they have the copyright on the name Rosicrucian Order. So if anybody dares to call themselves any kind of Rosicrucian Order, they send their lawyers with a cease and desist letter. So I've publicly proclaimed that they are false Rosicrucians on this podcast. They are the only ones that are false Rosicrucians. I acknowledge the Society Rosicruciana in Anglia, the Rosicrucian Fellowship, the Rose Rubae et Aurea Crucis, and but not Amorc. Amorc, they're just frauds. I mean, kind of half laughing. I don't like the fact that they try to be the Constantinian. They're trying to be the one true and only Rosicrucian order just because they have the copyright, and they're like, well, that's how you enforce a copyright. Playing it off that way. So.
Oh yeah, I know what you mean.
Yeah. And then, so Hinduism, I talked to my wife because she, well, she's not, I mean, we do certain pujas and things that are from Hinduism. And she was raised basically traditional Hindu. She sees no problems with getting a tattoo of the face of God. And I know in Buddhism, at least in Japan, now, of course, in the Yakuza, they get those full back, tattoos of the vengeful.
Full back Japanese tattoo and a couple sleeves.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so I love those tattoos. But I don't know if I ever went to Japan.
Well, they won't let you into the onsens, the hot springs. But I mean, you might find places where they will let you in because they'll say, okay, I see the tattoo, but I really don't think you're Yakuza. You can go ahead and come in the hot springs.
Oh yeah, because I'm not Japanese.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. I went to one onsen in what was the name? I forget the name of the city, but it was where the famous snow monkeys are. And I went to the old onsen. It's from the 1850s or something. And the couple that ran it, well, they weren't a couple. They were brother and sister. And their, I think, grandparents or great-grandparents were the original people who had that onsen built. And they had a hot spring. And I said, is it okay for me to go in? I have this one tattoo of a cross. And they laughed. And they said, you're not Yakuza. You could go in our onsen. Because they can't, the whole thing is they don't want Yakuza coming in. But they don't want to say no Yakuza because they don't want to make an enemy of Yakuza. So they say no tattoos. So that's what that's about.
Oh, yeah. There are a number of Korean people who are in it because Koreans are a bit discriminated. And other minorities are kind of discriminated against a bit. So for a lot of these Koreans, the only way they can really support themselves is by resorting to organized crime.
Oh, interesting. Yeah.
But I kind of heard something along those lines.
Yeah, yeah. I think the word Yakuza actually means like being dealt a bad hand, like in cards. So it's the people who were the untouchables or the people who got a crap hand in the game of life. So they take that with pride. Like we're the ones who got the crap hand, in poker.
Resort to crime to survive.
Right. Yeah. Now I guess they've got a lot of legitimate businesses in addition to the crime, but the crime is pretty heinous that they get involved in with human trafficking and stuff like that. So as much as there's a temptation to glorify, them, but some of the stuff they do is inexcusable.
Just like an organized crime syndicate.
Yeah. People want to glorify Pablo Escobar or something like that, but.
Oh yeah, the movie Scarf.
Right. Yeah. Classic. Al Pacino pretending to be Cuban.
Yeah. Oh yeah, it did kind of double as unintentional comedy.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh man. Let me check with Ryan, make sure he's got the email. Link should be in inbox. All right, cool. Nice. So let's see. What else did we cover in the email? Oh yeah, Wicca, and how Wicca is kind of provides a nice framework actually that can be expanded beyond what people usually do with Wicca. In fact, they even encourage people to experiment and play and go beyond just, let's say Western pantheons. And so I've known a few people that have used the Wiccan type circle. In fact, I've been that guy. I've used Wiccan and Golden Dawn type methods to invoke Hindu gods and things like that. I don't know if that's kosher, but
Huh. Oh yeah. Anyway, yeah. The thing with Wicca is it just I think generally you can experiment with gods from different cultures as much as you want yourself. Wiccan circles can do that.
oh right.
Group, and some groups want you to kind of stick to their chosen.
Yeah. Nice.
Oh, just what I was curious about is I'm interested in the Golden Dawn, but I've been to some.
We've got Ryan now.
Yeah.
We'll get back to what you were saying, but I wanted to introduce you, David. This is Ryan. Ryan, this is David.
Hey, nice to meet you. It's pretty late on this end. I think it's probably early on your end, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Nice. We got the whole world here.
Awesome. Are we recording, or do we need to start later?
Yeah. So we've got Ryan in Korea, we've got David in Florida, and we've got me here in New Delhi, India.
Nice. Super global podcast over here, right?
Yeah.
That's awesome.
So David was just bringing up the Golden Dawn. I guess in Florida, they say they're full. So if there's people in Florida that are interested in joining a Golden Dawn temple, then I guess they have to move to another state or something.
That's weird. Isn't like Aaron Leach, is that the guy who is in Florida? Doesn't he have like a Golden Dawn community or temple up there? I believe.
He's connected with that one that's the Thuban order, where they have a lot of different smaller Golden Dawns that are all affiliated with each other. Maybe that could be an option.
But I talked to Aaron Leach.
Oh, okay.
I told him about
maybe it was just the distance when the phone is far away. Yeah, if you put the phone way up to your face, then we can hear you better. So you said you spoke to Aaron Leach. Let's get some gossip about Aaron Leach on there.
Gossip about it, just like sometimes.
So his temple is different from the Cicero temple?
I'm not entirely sure, but he hasn't really given me any advice on how to join a Golden Dawn temple, except for to reach out to the one in Florida, and I did. But like I said, they said they're not accepting new students at this time, and I could try to join another Golden Dawn temple, but a lot of these temples have more interested students than they're able to take.
Interesting. That's interesting.
Oh, yeah. What I was wondering is, I've been to some OTO Thelema Gnostic masses and other meetups in South Florida, and while I like them, I kind of seem like I'd probably prefer the Golden Dawn magic.
Right. So for the Golden Dawn evangelists out there, we've got a lost sheep who might be forced to join a Thelemic order because even though his heart desires the pure Golden Dawn strain, no one's making themselves available to him. And so you can contact him through the link down below and let him know how to join your Golden Dawn order, Daniel. I mean, whoever's listening.
Pretty funny. That's pretty funny.
I don't know if they do astral initiations at that temple, but anyway.
Hmm.
I, there's
Oh, it's not.
golden
Can't hear you.
Like I've heard there's a contradiction between being in the golden dawn.
Yeah, I think what you were saying was about the conflicting currents. Grady McMurdy had told Israel Regardie, he had told Chick Cicero that he had to choose one path or the other and not walk both. Though there are people who disagree with that philosophy. There's a temple up in Canada that does both. They host Gnostic masses in the same temple they perform their traditional Golden Dawn rituals in. But they have a particular current, of course, that has a little bit more of a thalamic edge to it. There used to be a temple called the Thalamic Order of the Golden Dawn, where they did Golden Dawn initiations with a thalamic sort of twist. But as far as I know, they dismantled in 1998 and became Cor Lucis and one other thalamic temple. But maybe there's another newer order called with that name. I don't know.
Yeah, one of my friends here in Korea was actually in that way back in the day, like back in the late 80s, early 90s.
Right.
So yeah, it was a kind of a mixture of both, from what I understand. They did the Golden Dawn group rituals and everything.
Yeah.
So,
it's interesting.
Very interesting. And there's also there is the Temple of the Silver Star, which I think David Shoemaker heads, and they also do. They have like a couple different programs. They have an academic track, which you can do all online. And then they have an initiatory track, which I think actually goes through the Golden Dawn curriculum and initiations, and then adds in like later on thalamic stuff, I believe. So that's another option you can look into.
Yeah, because the inner order is where it gets very heavily, Christian / Rosicrucian. So those guys, that lean away from that would replace that with thalama at that point. So.
Right.
I know there's one Golden Dawn order in, I think, North Carolina, and they rewrote the Tower card portion of the Philosophus initiation, because the whole thing is a lot of sort of Old Testament fire and brimstone shouting, and it's sort of traumatizing to people who grew up in that sort of evangelical environment. So they just rewrote it and made it completely pagan and completely free from all that. But so sometimes there's the open source order of the Golden Dawn based in San Francisco, which the name kind of, you don't even really need to explain, because the name clears it up. They're open source. They tell people what they're doing, and they tweaked the system, and then they've got Set in the place of Horus, and they change things around, but they make it all public what they're doing. This is the ritual you will go through when you join our group, like that.
Okay,
that's interesting.
Yeah,
and they make it public so other people can take it and then edit it and make their own version too. So
yeah, cool. That's pretty cool.
Yeah, at this point, I guess worth pointing out, I'm a Freemason.
Okay. Which order?
Freemason, just regular Freemasonry.
The American Freemasons?
Yeah, I mean,
okay.
Nice.
The one that only admits men and is affiliated with the Shriners.
Right. Yeah.
And I think definitely there's a connection between Rosicrucianism and Masonry.
Oh, for sure. Yeah.
Definitely.
I mean, at least nowadays. Yeah.
Right. At some lodges, I guess some Masonic lodges, there's a lot of people interested in esoteric practices and studies, but then in others, there's like nobody interested in. They're basically just like drinking meetups, Yeah. So it really depends on where you are and the members of that lodge, it seems like.
Yeah. I've got my dad's Freemasonic paraphernalia here in front of me, but he kind of had fantasies of joining the Freemasons and getting into all the esoteric stuff. But the one that really gets into the esoteric stuff that I know of is in Culver City, where they're kind of low key Golden Dawn. They were low key until they came out of the came out on my podcast and announced to the world, Merrick Hamer is the premonstrator and Poke Runyon is the imperator of a secret Golden Dawn order operating out of the Culver City Masonic Lodge. It's like, oh, all right. I always wondered about that. And we've got Grady McMurdy's furniture. Oh, I always wondered what the furniture was. Okay, now the mystery is solved. So there's a lot of Masons in that order, and a lot of, and so they're very interesting. Some interesting people in that lodge.
So if you're interested in the Golden Dawn, I mean, would you consider it necessary that you have to join a temple or a lodge? Or, I mean, you can also study with somebody, or they're like online courses and correspondence courses and stuff like that, right?
That's true.
Yeah, people can do for sure. But I just think being in a group, or at least doing it with another person, would make things more concrete.
Yeah,
Sure,
that's
sure.
true.
For sure. Well, like I said, the only one, I guess it's probably far from Florida. Is it in South Carolina, the Temple of the Silver Star? I'm not sure. It might be in South Carolina. I don't know if that's relatively close to you. Probably, right?
Oh, South Carolina's close to Florida, but I'm at the very bottom of Florida.
Okay.
Where's state?
Okay. Interesting. Okay, I'm curious. I guess Leech's thing is totally full, huh? Maybe you can ask if they take openings. Like a lot of these places, maybe check back every few months or something. I don't know. Maybe you can.
Yeah, it could be worth asking him what I could do, but I think kind of indicate like go after what you really want. Don't settle for something just because it's more available.
That's true too.
Yeah, true. Very true.
Yeah.
Very true.
I mean, that may go for if you're drawn toward Golden Dawn and not actually drawn to OTO, then even if there's one nearby, then maybe pulled out. There was a point where there were a couple people from the OTO that wanted to join our Golden Dawn group, and we had a strict policy. Nope, you have to resign from. But I don't know. I liked this. It was a couple, 2 women, and so I petitioned the head of the order because I had that sort of relationship with him back then, and got that rule waived. And so we started admitting people who were members of the OTO. But that order basically doesn't exist anymore. So that Golden Dawn order, I mean, it's splintered into at least 3 or 4 different orders.
Interesting.
Yeah.
I mean, I have nothing against the OTO. I like the OTO. I just think the kind of magic they do in Golden Dawn resonates more in the ring. Yeah, there is some overlap, but I did notice when there was a guy who was like I think a pretty high-ranking guy in the OTO, and when he performed an LBRP, I was like, really? That's how you guys perform the LBRP? He's just speaking. There was no vibrating. It was just Ate, Malkuth, and I was like, oh wow, all right, I mean, I'm used to like very different approach. I dropped my gum, so I'm worried I'm going to step in it, but I'll deal with that later. I won't do that on your time.
Well, as far as actual Golden Dawn temples, there aren't like a lot, right? I mean, it's not like there's abundance of Golden Dawn temples anywhere, right?
Oh, yeah, I did meet up with someone who was higher up at the temple in Denver.
Denver.
Oh, right. Yeah, those guys. I mean, there's 2 that I know of in Denver, but one of them might not still be active.
Yeah, it seems like this guy was pretty ambivalent toward the OTO.
Right. Yeah, those guys are pretty traditional Golden Dawn. They have a shop in Denver, something about poison. I was surprised. They were saying, well, we're using the old version of the word poison that includes things that are good for you. And I was like, really? Okay, but it's like it's an herbal shop. And so they combine sort of Native American herbal and Golden Dawn in that group.
Oh, that's interesting.
They seem pretty interesting. There's another guy in Denver, though, if it's the guy that I'm thinking of. I didn't know they were still doing their thing, but why not? Maybe they are still doing their thing. And he definitely is not into the OTO. He's an old friend of mine that some people might, have heard me make reference to the Marine in my stories. But anyway, I won't say more about that.
Yeah. Yeah, finding a physical place to join up, I guess, can be hard. Especially America is such a big country that there are options, I guess, but they're so spread out that like physically attending them might be tough. Might be hours and hours away by plane, So. Yeah.
Mm. Is there much Hinduism or Buddhism in Florida?
I'd say yes, because maybe not so much, but up in like Miami, Fort Lauderdale, they have some Hindu and Buddhist temples, but it's much bigger. It's much bigger in, say, Los Angeles than it is in Miami. Los Angeles has a huge Asian and Indian population. And there are a lot more Muslims in Miami because of all the Persians in LA. But the religions that Miami and LA both have the abundance of are Catholics, Jews, and Santeros. Santero.
Oh, right.
Santeria is very big in both those cities, and both cities have a very large Jewish population.
Yeah, my sister converted. Her longtime boyfriend, they've been together over 30 years. I think at that point you're married, basically. You haven't had the ceremony, but you're married. He's my brother-in-law. But they were looking for the right place for them, and they went to, of course, the Orthodox, and were like, okay, this is too much, no way. And then they went to the Reformed, and my sister saw a paperback Torah on the ground and was like, yeah, it's too loose. So they found kind of like one that's kind of more conservative but not Orthodox, and so then they stick to that.
Interesting. Okay.
Yeah.
Interesting.
There's usually where there's Jewish population, there's traditional Kabbalah, like Rabbi Berg Kabbalah Center type presences, but there doesn't tend to be. I mean, as a rule, as a 99%, I'd say of Jewish people interested in Kabbalah don't end up interested in Golden Dawn type Kabbalah. Golden Dawn type Kabbalah is much more of sort of a European Christian mixed with pagan phenomenon. So it's British Kabbalah basically.
Right. What attracts? Okay, go ahead.
One thing I'll point out is I once did date a girl who was Jewish, but she practiced Wicca.
Oh yeah.
Oh, I just thought that was kind of interesting because her background was Jewish, but she was Wiccan.
There's a lot of Israeli people that come to India and become yogis. I think that there's like a spiritual something innate that sometimes it's people reaching outside of the religion that they were raised with because they're not satisfied with it, but other times they have it as their center, but they kind of want to add to it and kind of reach out and not be so isolated. Maybe that's one aspect of it is feeling disconnected, feeling like if they say I'm Jewish, people go, oh, okay, well, I'm not, but if they say, well, I'm a yogi, they go, oh, okay, me too, something like that. But I don't know, I'm just guessing.
Yeah, like in this girl's case, I think maybe she found more spiritual satisfaction in Wicca than she would if she was just traditionally Jewish. Right. But I had a religion professor in college who was Jewish, but even though he was Jewish, he and pretty devoted to being Jewish, he also taught about the mystical traditions of other religions, like Sufism and Islam, mystical Christianity, mystical Buddhism.
Yeah.
And so it's like his thing was even though he was a liberal Jew, but still a Jew, and he was committed to his faith, but he did respect and appreciate other religions.
Yeah. The woman who taught me Hebrew, I took weekly lessons for 2 years in Sephardic Hebrew, and I'll give her a plug. First of all, I'll point to this corner of my screen. That might not point to anything on Praxis, but on Esoterinerd, that's Gila, her episode. She has a blog called The Hebrew Letter, and she came out with a book and a deck of cards that are her artwork based on the Hebrew letters. But anyway, so she channels, among other things, she channels wisdom about the the Hebrew letters, but also is open to all these things that you mentioned, Hindu philosophy and Sufism. Although one time, I remember I asked her to help me translate the Rosary, the Catholic Rosary, into Hebrew, and she was helping me translate it, and I knew enough Hebrew that when we got to the part where it was Mother of God, she had translated it Mother who is godly, or Mother who is like God, or Mother of or pertaining to God. And I was like, well, yeah, but how do you say God's mother? And she was like, why would you want to say that? And I was like, well, that's what they're saying. That's what, because Jesus is God, Mary is his mother, the Son and the Father are one and the same. So Mary, Mother of God. How do you say that in Hebrew? And she translated it for me, and then immediately asked me to leave. and she's like, I'll see you next week. Like it wasn't like a permanent thing, but she just needed some time after that. I was saying, well, that's what they're saying. She said, then correct it.
That's pretty funny.
Correct 2,000 years.
It's a big taboo in Judaism to say any person who was a human being was also divine, or the son of God, or God, or anything like that.
Yeah. It may have been intentional on the part of the early Christians to emphasize that theory in order to differentiate themselves as a separate religion rather than a sect of Judaism. It's not something to empower the colonized, but something to empower the colonizer. Just an idea, just throwing it out there. I'm just talking. It's like Joe Rogan says, right? No.
Right. Oh man. Something I opened Facebook this morning, and the first thing that popped up was a sponsored advertisement by The Economist, the publication, and it said, "Why Joe Rogan's wrong about everything." And I'm like, Jesus, like you guys paid for an ad like this? Like,
well, they know people will click on it, and then The Economist will make money. So
right. It's a very petty, but
clickbaity.
Yeah, exactly. That's pretty funny.
It's careless. I mean, at least Edward Bernays was selling something specific. I mean, not really. He was just, working for anybody that would hire him. But, that's a bad example. Actually, maybe that's the perfect example. It's all just Edward Bernays, gone and run amok. He was the guy that Big Tobacco, he said, I can double your sales in one day. And they said, yeah, right. So he hired a bunch of famous women and models to all light up cigarettes on New Year's of 1920 in Times Square while the cameras were on them. And suddenly it was okay for women to smoke cigarettes, and the sales doubled overnight. And he got everybody to, put ice in their water, to eat bacon for breakfast, everything that we take, everything unhealthy and American was Edward Bernays selling something for somebody. He was Sigmund Freud's nephew, who was just crouching, listening to his uncle, really, tell me more. How does the ego work again? How can we manipulate this for evil?
And that's the birthplace of marketing, huh?
Right, exactly. He called it propaganda. Then after World War II, that word had a bad taste, in people's mouths, so now they called it public relations.
Interesting. Okay.
Right. It's basically just advertising and marketing. But it's just shepherding people in no particular direction. At this point, it's just the direction wherever people want to go. It's like in the old days. I don't know how it is now, but it used to be that Murdoch owned half of all media, and the other guy who's
Turner, I think, right? Was it Turner and Murdoch? I think, right?
Well, there was old men.
Murdoch was Fox and all that.
Yeah. There's Murdoch, and then there's the Viacom guy. I forget his name. He was the other guy. If you're watching Succession, Murdoch is the main family in Succession, and then the other family was the other one. But it was basically Murdoch had, he wanted everybody to follow Reagan, or to follow whatever Reagan meant to him, or whatever, and to be, pro-Israel, Republican. He had very specific a checklist of basically Fox News. Everything they're pushing on Fox News is basically Murdoch's agenda. But Viacom was basically, okay, what do people want to buy? Sell it to them. Okay, what do they want to look at? Show it to them. How can we get their money? All right, give them that. So it's which is worse? I don't know.
Interesting.
Not sure. I'm not sure.
So
Probably
for
Murdoch is worse, but you know.
yeah, no, they're all pretty bad, I would say. But I'm curious, what draws you to the Golden Dawn specifically? Like out of all the different paths or temples or what have you?
Oh, Redstone. Sorry, that was the name.
Mm.
I'd say what draws me are just, it seems like the symbolism and the ritual seem really cool. And I'm drawn to the idea of like working with angels and taking some things out of the monotheistic religions without totally committing to the monotheistic religions.
Mm. Okay.
And like, you know, the angels in Hebrew and that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yeah.
and what was I about to say? And I mean, maybe there's some other magical order that might be a good fit for me that I'm not aware of yet.
Mm.
But it seems like out of all the ones I've really researched, I'm drawn mostly towards the Golden Dawn.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Do you have the book Self-Initiation into Golden Dawn?
No.
It's a good book. You know, it's not necessarily the answer for everybody, but it's a path, it's an option, but of course it lacks the community side of it. But you know, there are online communities and there's some Facebook groups and things. Some of them are awful, some of them are okay. Golden Dawn Universal was pretty good. That was the one.
Yeah, anyway, I would say definitely want to move out of my small town in the Keys, and a large part of the reason I want to do that is so I can find more spiritual communities up my alley.
Right.
Them.
Yeah. LA used to be really cool before it got ridiculously expensive, you know. But
Right.
as far as spiritual groups, you know, there's a lot going on there. But there's Asheville and there's I think even Austin and some other places. Seattle has a Golden Dawn, as far as I know. And that's in the US anyway. And I think there must be something going on in Chicago. I haven't been paying attention, but there's at least 2 Golden Dawn temples in. Oh, well, I mean, Culver City, but again, it's expensive. But if you found a place where you could commute to Culver City.
And that's near the city to where I am.
As what?
I said Miami's very expensive too, and it's the nearest big city to where I am.
Right, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, the Culver City Masons, I think they're American Masons too. I don't think there's something weird like Scottish Rite or York Rite or something. But they have that direct Golden Dawn thing happening there in Culver City, California. So I'll put another card up here for that. So you can check that out later as well. I'll just link directly to Merrick Hamer, that episode back in the 20s.
Yeah, it seems like if you really want to connect with a physical temple, like you have to probably move. I mean, like there's so many online options as we were mentioning, but I mean, sometimes it's the only choice, right? Like relocating to a place that has what you want, right?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, people relocate for work. They relocate for love. I mean, I'm in India, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. I mean, this was for spiritual and then for love. I mean, when you have both of those, it's like, okay, no more hesitation. You know, like, I guess.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, our surprise guest,
Uh-huh.
Guruji. 1 sec. I'm going to be surrendering my chair for a little while. No. Oh yeah, no. This is the plan. Here you go. Oh, yeah.
Namaste.
Oh, hello. Yes, namaste. So you have a special guest, huh?
Yeah.
Yeah. Nice to meet you.
Can you hear him okay? Yeah.
Nice to meet you too.
Nice to, yeah, you too.
Yeah, nice. So can you introduce yourself?
I'm Kawalji, and I'm a family friend of Priya. Is the wife.
Okay. They're in. You guys are in New Delhi, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Nice. How is he enjoying life there? He must be having a good time in India, right?
Yeah, definitely. But pandemic situation is there, so now it's a little bit,
Yeah.
nice.
Yeah.
Otherwise,
A lot of the world, though, a lot of like European countries or some other countries, they're kind of almost like over the pandemic already. Like it's already spread so much, and they kind of like moved on. In India, how's the atmosphere?
It's good. It's winter here now, cold, but the weather is nice.
Hmm.
Are you from?
Oh, what's that?
You're from?
I'm from the USA too, California
Yes,
as well, actually. Yeah,
California.
but I'm actually in Korea now. In Korea,
Oh,
South
they're
Korea.
in South
Yeah,
Korea.
yeah. So pretty far away from America.
Yeah, South Korea.
Yeah,
Cosmetic
exactly.
surgery, destination for cosmetic,
Say
cosmetic
again?
surgery,
Oh,
destination
yeah,
for
yeah,
cosmetic
yeah, yeah.
surgery,
That's true. Plastic surgery is very popular here.
plastic
Very,
surgery.
very popular.
Yeah,
Plastic surgery is very popular in Miami too.
Oh, I bet. Yeah, Miami, Hollywood,
yeah,
all that stuff is popular. But here, definitely very, very popular. Very much
yeah.
so.
Popularity. Oh.
Yeah, I'd say on a humorous note, that's why my parents didn't really want to live in Miami because they really feel like people who spend half their money, half their salary on plastic surgery and designer clothes and that kind of stuff really aren't their kind of people.
Oh, interesting. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, it's like my parents like don't really like to spend money on designer clothes and stuff like that. They like to travel and that kind of stuff.
Mm-hmm. Well, that's good. They have a little bit more values on developing your character and traveling and stuff.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I feel like I do like some designer clothes,
Mm.
and yeah, but I'm saying I don't think I'd ever like be a big plastic surgery person.
Right. Is it popular in India? Probably in Bollywood and stuff like that, I would imagine.
Yeah,
Right?
only but not so popular here in India.
Okay.
Now people are slowly, but I heard that this South Korea is a kind of destination for cheap plastic surgery also because
Yeah, yeah.
everyone is, you know,
It's very popular, so it's
yeah,
reasonable compared to other countries.
reasonable, yeah, reasonable.
Yeah, the price. Yeah, there's a lot of hospitals and good quality and reasonable price. So
Yeah,
people.
yeah, it's good quality also.
Yeah. So a lot of people
It's,
before the COVID situation, a lot of people would fly here to get like on
yeah,
a
yeah.
tour.
From India also, people are going there
Yeah.
for surgery because now it's a kind of a destination for surgery.
Interesting.
So
Yeah, yeah. So are you a Hindu or what is your? Do you have any religion?
I'm born in Sikh,
Oh, Sikh. Yeah.
but now I'm I cut my hair, but I'm
Ah,
just
yeah. Right.
yeah,
You're supposed to keep
yeah,
growing
yeah.
and wear
When I was
the
18,
turban.
see, yeah. So
Mm-hmm.
Edward gave me this, but I'm not very good in communicative English.
No, it's okay. It's okay. It's okay.
But still, I will try to communicate.
No, it's
I'm very
okay.
good in Hindi, Punjabi, Sikh language.
Indian Punjabi, yeah. Or so, are
Yeah,
you
yeah,
from
English,
Punjab
Punjabi.
or
Yeah,
you're
excuse.
from Punjab? I would say. Are you from
No, no, I'm
Punjab?
not from Punjab. I'm from Delhi. I
Oh,
born
but you
here,
speak both.
and
Okay.
but still, I'm belong to Punjabi family. So
Okay.
and
That's why the Sikhism. That's why.
yeah, that's why the Sikhism. But now I'm just like just no religion.
You're what do they call it? An apostate? Is that
But
what it's
yeah,
called?
no,
When you're kicked out.
spiritualist,
You're a man
spiritual.
without a religion. Yeah.
Yeah.
Hmm.
But okay, all the religions are no problem. Same.
Are there a lot of people in India that are like religionless, like that are like atheists or just totally don't follow any traditions or religions? Are there a lot of people like that there, or not that many?
Mm, It is almost impossible to know people are without religion and religion because there are so many religion here, and in Hinduism, no one take care know that if someone is going to the temple or not. No one care at
Mhm.
all.
Sure.
So no one knows that this person is like a theist or theist.
Right. It never really comes up in conversation very much, huh?
Yeah.
Oh, you're
So
talking about atheism, and I want to share some thoughts on that.
Uh-huh.
On atheism.
Mhm.
Yeah, I'd say for a while I considered myself an agnostic because I was interested in religion and I had a spiritual inclination, but I didn't like want to be dogmatic. But now I realize that atheism just isn't fulfilling to me. But neither is religious fundamentalism.
yeah,
So it's kind of been a struggle for me to reconcile, my rationalism and liberalism with being a spiritual person.
Hmm.
Because I'm saying just hard to occupy the space where you're spiritual, but not like dogmatically religious.
Yeah, okay, good. But yes, spiritualism is okay, but dogmatism is like, it's very hard. It's not so.
Yeah.
In India, there are not a lot of dogmatic groups.
Yeah,
or-
India is full of dogmatic people.
Oh, okay,
Basically.
okay. They have their own sects and their
Hinduism,
own cults and
yeah,
stuff like that.
Hinduism and Muslims are there, and
Sure.
even Jains are there. But yeah, but it is not like, if you are not following any religion, then no one care that you are not following any religion.
Hmm.
Only Muslims are like hardcore. But if I'm
Don't
if
they
I'm
have some
really-
evangelical Christians that are pretty hardcore in India, like Nagaland?
yeah, Christians,
Christians in India.
yeah, but yeah,
Mhm.
but I know very few Christian people, and because where I live, Christians are there are no so many Christians people are there.
Okay. Yeah, it's interesting. So you said atheism is not very fulfilling, but then at the same time, believing some religion dogmatically or this book or whatnot is also equally not as fulfilling. Is that what you're saying?
That's exactly what I'm saying. In fact, I'd say it's even less fulfilling than atheism. Like believing every word of the Bible is literally true, and anyone who's not a Christian is going to hell, and that homosexuality is wrong, and all sex outside of marriage is wrong, and all other religions are wrong. I mean, I just can't stand that. And I mean, I'm just saying, I do think the Bible and all other religious texts do have beautiful spiritual truths to teach us, but I think like the creation story of the Bible shouldn't be taken literally.
Right.
A lot
But
of
there
Christians have the attitude that either you believe all or believe none.
But now there are rational thinker, critical thinkers, and free thinkers. New breed is coming and evolving.
Yeah. I think that there's a lot of stupid things like that, like false dichotomies. Like you have to be either an atheist, like these dualistic tendencies are kind of funny. It's like you have to be an atheist, and there's no God. Like I believe this, and then it's still your mind grasping onto the concept of no God. And then there's like, no, I believe in this one God of this book, but it's still you creating these scenarios. You're still playing in the game of dualism and mental constructs, right? And it always has to be one or the other. I find these kind of games kind of interesting because they're both equally like mental obscurations or delusions in some kind of way, right?
Yeah. You read that God delusion of
I'd say just my thing is as far as
Charles Dawkins.
Oh, Dawkins, yeah.
Richard Dawkins.
God delusion.
Richard Dawkins. I think it's
Richard Dawkins. I think.
Right.
Richard Dawkins. The God delusion.
Yeah, I'm just saying, I don't know if I'm
It's Charles Darwin and
Richard Dawkins or Sam Harris.
Charles Darwin and Richard Dawkins.
Charles Darwin. That's not Richard Dawkins. Richard Dawkins.
Yeah. Is Darwin's first name Charles, or am I making that up? I don't know.
Yeah. Darwin is evolution.
Would you come and explain me for a minute after?
Okay, yeah.
So, you want?
Oh, I don't know.
See, my,
But,
Do you have any
I'm
questions
not-
for Guruji? before
I'm
we
not
go?
very good in English, but still, how to communicate. I can understand, but
It's just a matter of asking the right question. Not so much about the form, but
Your
about
English
the
seems
substance.
totally fine. You seem totally fine to me.
Oh.
Your English seems almost perfect. Questions? Well, I did ask you. So you grew up in Delhi, right? You mentioned that.
Yeah, Delhi. NCR Delhi, Faridabad. Means Faridabad, Delhi is similar.
Okay. I have a question. How do Indian people view Nepal? Because I'm going there next week. What is, or maybe not Indian people? How do you view Nepal? Do you have any opinions or?
You know, the general opinion in India about Nepal is the lots of,
What's that?
I'm telling you the truth. Is Nepali people are coming to India for job of, a kind of um, to take care of the things,
Okay, like
like
labor, you mean? Kind of labor jobs,
labor
or?
also, and what to say, a housekeeper kind of person,
Okay, okay, interesting,
So,
interesting.
but still, Nepalis are very loyal and they are very good people also. Their
Okay,
image is a very loyal and very nice people.
okay, okay,
This kind of
interesting.
image is there.
Mhm. Okay, a
So,
long time ago too. So, were they integrated like in the same? Were they always separate, or were they sort of under like one? Were they kind of the same country or the same kingdom a long time ago, or have they always been
yeah, yeah,
historically?
yeah. India and Nepal,
Yes, yes. Uh-huh.
yeah, yeah. Once it was like this, but now it's a separate country. I think long before.
Okay,
So,
long time ago. Yeah, not like
long time
recently,
ago.
like
No, no,
Pakistan
no, no,
and
no, no.
Bangladesh. That's very recent, but
Burma,
60s.
Afghanistan, Pakistan, Nepal,
Uh-huh.
Bhutan, this all
Yeah,
region was like one.
I've only met a handful of Nepalese. I'm going there next week to Kathmandu, but I've only met a handful of Nepalese abroad, specifically, well, in America, and then also here in Korea, and then also a lot in Dubai. And all of
Mhm.
them, some look totally Chinese, like
Yeah,
100% Chinese looking or Asian, and then the other
yeah,
ones look like totally Indian. You know,
yeah.
that's a very
Because
interesting. Yeah.
the northeast past of India, near to Nepal, the Nepalese are more like Indian.
Oh, yeah. And also, there's a region in India where everybody looks
Yeah,
Chinese too. I
yeah.
forgot the name of it, but my friend was. I have an
Nagaland
Indian.
is there, Assam is there,
Uh-huh.
Assam, Nagaland, Meghalaya,
Uh-huh.
that part.
What's the region name? That region? What'd you say?
Darjeeling,
Darjeeling.
Nepal, no, Assam,
Northeast India?
yeah,
Hmm.
Nagaland,
Yeah.
Meghalaya, and few more,
Not on
Sikkim,
it.
Sikkim,
Hmm.
Sikkim is
Mhm.
there, and Darjeeling. These people
Okay,
are like Northeast Indian. They are Indian, but
but they look
Northeast.
Chinese,
They
basically,
look
almost
Asian.
They
Chinese
I
look,
mean,
looking.
they look East Asian.
they look like,
Or
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Okay,
they
interesting.
look
It's
like,
not like a minority group. It's their. Are they considered like a different race, like a different minority kind of group, or?
in India.
Yeah, do you understand my question? So, like in Russia, they have Tatars and Mongolians. They're different minority groups.
Minority groups are
Yeah,
there. Okay.
India doesn't have a lot of those sort of minority groups like that, like
But
China.
yes, lots
Yeah.
of minority groups are there. Even Sikhs are in minority.
Okay. Okay.
And these Jains are in minority. And Muslims are also in a way minority. Muslim population is more than Pakistan here in India, but still they are in minority because there are,
a billion people here.
yeah,
So
there are,
200
Yeah, yeah,
million is
yeah,
a minority.
yeah, 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 yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
yeah. That's a huge
So,
population.
yeah.
Okay.
So lots of even Christians are in minority, and
Mhm.
lots of other means minority peoples are here in India.
Mhm.
There are so many.
Okay. Okay. Anyways, we got David back. Maybe he has some questions he probably wants to ask us too as well.
I would say a question I have, I was talking with Edward about this earlier, is I'm considering I'd really like to get some tattoos of Hindu deities. I think definitely Ganesh and possibly Lakshmi and definitely Green Tara, though she's more of a Tibetan Buddhist deity. I mean, if I were to get those tattoos on my arm or whatever, if I was in India, I would have to cover them in a lot of places just to not offend people, or people get really offended seeing them.
No, no, not at all. Indian people, if you are any tattoo, you are making any tattoo, there is no problem. And what you are thinking, or which deity you are want to tattoo?
Yeah, I've just heard it like in places like Sri Lanka and Thailand, they're kind of touchy about Buddha.
Buddha that is okay, no problem.
Oh,
No
maybe
one get offended. Hello? The voice
maybe
is
it's okay, but it's not in Sri Lanka.
Maybe a
okay.
different.
Maybe Sri Lankan are like, there are more Buddhists there in Sri Lanka, but the place should be right. Arm is okay. Body part
Remember
matters.
where you get it. Yeah,
Oh,
don't put
that's
it on.
true. Yeah.
Only body part matters. Okay. So
Don't get it on your ass.
In a respectful place.
yeah, on respectful place. Otherwise, there's no problem.
Right. So in India, most people, they have like one. Do they typically choose like one god or goddess that they revere? Is that right?
Yeah, but one can have so many also.
Sure.
In one house, there are 33 means million gods.
Yeah.
So but popular are few, like so means 100 and 200. So they are worshipping all or one. It's not no matter. Someone is liking Krishna and some is liking Shiva and some goddess Durga and Kali, and there are so many. So
Right.
there are devotee of different gods, and they are having so many also means if someone is the devotee of Krishna and he is also the devotee of Durga and Kali, so it's like this.
Right. I like that because that's very rare in a lot of other countries, right? Where it's like you have to, they don't really. It's not as accepting in a lot of other countries.
Yeah,
You have
that's
to
why
really-
it's democratic.
Yeah, it's a democratic religious
Yeah.
atmosphere, I suppose. Yeah, that's good.
Yeah.
That's good.
No one is asking for particular God. If someone is not doing any prayer, so it's like okay, his God is
Right.
different, no problem.
So they don't run Facebook ads like 90 reasons why Shiva sucks and Krishna's the best or something like that. They don't make these like hit ads.
That's one thing I really like. One thing I really like about living here is, there's chanting, there's someone chanting, Arabic prayers, and then at 4 a.m. there'll be Hare Krishnas with loud drums, coming to chanting Hare Krishna, and the Sikhs will come with the fire dancing. So nobody even thinks twice if I'm going Yod Hey Vav. It's like who's that? I don't know. Something. Okay.
If some
Right.
theist is there, then no one knows that this guy is a theist because he may be in different kind of God. His prayer may be different in different time. So it is no one knows that this guy is a theist.
Maybe a vow of silence. Who knows?
Yeah.
Sure.
He may be spiritual in silent mode.
Yeah, for sure.
You also I have an interest in diverse spiritual paths, like hearing about his Golden Dawn / Golden and Buddhism, because all the spiritual interests I have, I kind of want it to be a bridge between Eastern and Western practices.
Yeah.
It's like when I mentioned the Western mystery tradition, like Freemasonry, Gnosticism, Kabbalah, Golden Dawn, etc. And I usually I mentioned Hinduism, Buddhism, Taoism. So I'd like to kind of build a bridge between those two worlds for my personal spiritual practice.
Yeah. I see no reason why you couldn't do that, I would say. What about, I'm curious, in the Golden Dawn, because Edward was a member of the Golden Dawn, do you have to have a monotheistic belief, or is that like a prerequisite? So for example, in the Masons, I think you have to at least believe in the great architect, no matter what book you choose or.
Yeah, that's true. Some say you have to believe in a monotheistic God, but God.
I'm not sure in the Golden Dawn, though. I'm not sure about that.
To admit Hindus and Hindu, I'd say Hindus have a variety of theological orientations, but it's like the most common Hindu orientation is henotheism, meaning it's like you believe in one God who's manifest on different.
No.
They're like what Wiccans believe generally, or there's one supreme being that manifests itself into many lesser gods. Just like they're all kind of faces of one God. Like it's like Jesus is Allah, is Shiva, is Krishna, is Queen Tara, is Lakshmi, is Persephone.
Right. They're pretty flexible in regards with what they allow you to like I've heard Thelemites, they'll bring the book of the law. Like I guess you have to bring your holy book or something like that. So Christians will bring the Bible, and the Muslims will bring the Quran. I've even heard stories of Thelemites who are Freemasons. They'll bring the book of the law, or whatever your religion is. Right? It's pretty flexible, I hear.
Yeah, Freemasonry is pretty flexible.
But I'm not sure about the Golden Dawn, though. I think I really don't know. I don't know if you have to have a monotheistic belief or not. I'm not sure about it.
Say hi.
Oh, you got more members?
Everybody, this is Navi.
Steam was broken here.
Hello.
Got a party now, huh?
Okay.
Got a party going on.
So I think now we can join.
Okay.
Okay. Guys. See you.
Okay, take it easy. Yep.
Yeah.
Well, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Cool.
So, like in Korea and Japan, everybody takes a photo, or they always go like this, right? So this one girl told me it's the art of the East Asian V. They go, Americans, it's not. So Americans, they say, oh, you're doing the peace sign. They go, no, this is the East Asian V. Completely different.
It wasn't before it was peace, it was victory, wasn't it?
It was victory, yeah, exactly.
Sort of the opposite of peace.
Yeah, exactly. It's supposed to be victory.
More like Pax.
Well, I have a question in India, though.
Yeah. I remember first time I went over to Japan, I was pretty young, and I took a picture with these like high school Japanese girls in their uniforms, like the Sailor Moon looking uniform, and then they were going like this.
Oh, no.
I go, that's why they do that. That's another kind of.
Do you know what that means? The anime you're imitating was drawn by someone naughty.
Right, exactly.
Oh man,
it's pretty funny. But I think for the Golden Dawn, though, it's sort of an emanationist cosmology or ontology, right? Is that basically what you would say? At least from what I've studied, it seems like that. With almost like Rosicrucian Christian, a little bit of Christian theology, somewhat.
Yeah, I've heard the Sephiroth referred to as emanations.
Mm-hmm.
I just to refresh my memory, how would you define emanationist?
So basically, there's like one. I guess there's various interpretations though, but basically in emanationism, there's like one creator or one source, and then everything kind of drips down into that, right? So kind of like in the Hermetic Kabbalah, you have like Keter, and then everything kind of goes down into
as opposed to like a literal, and God said this. It's like interpreting it more as like this actually sort of was a natural thing that unfolded out of God, or that the material universe is sort of the physical stuff of the body of God, and maybe the soul and the mind are, collectively the soul and the mind of God, or is that pantheism? Or
I think that's pantheism, actually. So I think if you equate God with the physical universe, I think that's pantheism.
Right, God is everything.
God is everything, right?
Oh, I'm more of a panentheist.
Yeah.
But God
nail on the head. Yeah.
Everything too.
God is everything and more. God is the whole universe and then some.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I like that.
Yeah, it's kind of what Wiccans seem to believe, that there is a supreme power, but it's manifest in different deities and in the physical world.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. But yeah, I think Golden Dawn, I mean, on one level, I think it's designed kind of depends on who's running it at the time, but it seems like the original one is made to be compatible with a lot of different perspectives. There was someone recently said that the Golden Dawn was a Victorian attempt at what the Unitarian Universalists tried in the 60s. So like, in other words, like a way for, you know, a Jewish person and a pagan and a Buddhist and a Hindu and a Christian to all kind of agree on Osiris, you know. Kind of. I mean, I guess some people are phobic of the Egyptian thing. People who are coming from a very sort of fundamentalist Christian or even like a more Orthodox Jewish will say, why Egyptian? You know, like, haven't you read the Bible? You know, God destroyed the Egyptians. And then, but then, you know, we have an answer. We would have an answer for that. Like, well, that's why we wear them as clothes instead of worship. You know, we put on Egyptian god forms to perform the ceremony because the Egyptian gods are the administrators of the universe in the path of Tav, or the astral plane, and they, like us, are subservient to Jehovah. And then they go, oh, okay, I'm in, you know. So, and if someone's Celtic, we have a different pitch. You know, it's sort of that Pauline, like, something for everybody, like, or that skillful means in the Lotus Sutra, like, oh, well, what are you looking for? Well, that's Buddhism. Come on in.
Right. Jack of all trades. Jack of all trades. We have Chinese food. We have pasta. We have curry.
The food court, spiritual food court. I mean, I do appreciate how the Golden Dawn is structured, because that bare bones. I mean, they had a very basic. Because I mean, if somebody studies Egyptology, your brain kind of gets full at a certain point. So they distilled it down to what's it called? Not the Ennead, is that the right word? The basic 9 or the basic 8, I forget. The main gods, you know, Isis, Osiris, Nephthys, Set, Horus. Okay. Let's not deal with Sekhmet. Let's not deal with these other ones. But they have that neophyte initiation, the Z formula, with its mysterious origins coming by way of Fräulein Springle from some mysterious thing called Liebrecht und Leben, or Hermanubis in Germany. And
Cipher manuscripts.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Which were either a brilliant forgery or a very still an unsolved mystery to this day. Without a time machine, I guess we'll never know. You know, see Westcott in there making it up. You know, but one thing is they used the Polygraphia by Johannes Trithemius to interpret it. So Steganographia, Polygraphia? I think it was Polygraphia. The cipher, cipher manuscripts. The cipher that they used was around at the time of Trithemius, which I think was the 1400s, if I'm right. Maybe the 1500s. I forget exactly when he was around. But I guess that was the Italian Renaissance period, somewhere like 1500s.
Right.
He was the teacher of Paracelsus and Henry Agrippa.
Right.
And all that. So someone might have been an expert in Polygraphia, and you know, maybe, you know, but I mean, it is brilliant though. I mean, it's kind of like, wow, who put this together? It's really well done. That neophyte initiation, and then the Zelator initiation. They go full Hebraic mysteries, where you're basically initiated as a high Levitical priest, you know, and if you get an arrogant teenager like me or Crowley in there, then you really think that you're just as, you know, you have the same authority as a Levitical high priest, you know, after that ceremony. And then you go up to Theoricus, where you don't know what's going on. It's like Samothracian, Chaldean, something, the moon is coming up and down. There's Egyptian stuff happening. And then what? I don't know, you're in Yesod now. And then Practicus comes along, and it's the Chaldean oracles of Zoroaster, which are neither Chaldean nor of Zoroaster, but it's done as if it were happening in Samothrace. And it's brilliant. It's brilliant. It's beautiful. I've taught about it and studied it for years. And like, even in my worst days where I was sick of Golden Dawn and didn't want to hear about Golden Dawn, if somebody asked me about the Chaldean oracles or the Practicus initiation, you'd get me talking, you know. And then
Then Philosophus was kind of a jumbled mix where they start bringing in some of that Old Testament fire and brimstone in the middle of it. And you're like, what is this here? You know, why are you screaming at me about hailstones and flashings of fire and the Lord stomping through and smiting the heathen? You know, like what's happening?
Right.
You know. And then at the end, they just drop this little hint where they're like, okay, in order to solve the riddle, this elaborate riddle that's been set up from the grade of neophyte, you must understand that in order to fix the fall of Adam, it's necessary that the second Adam be crucified on the cross, but it has to be in Malkut. Anyway, here's your badge, go home. And then in the old days, there was no portal grade. So then after that, then they just strap you to a cross and whip you and say, you're now part of the body of Christ. And so that was a little too much of it. Like, wait, what? Huh? And so they added the portal grade as sort of a period of kind of a trial period of where they can look at you and be like, is this person, should we let him in? Or just kind of like where it was an emphasis on thoth. And that was they hoped that would scramble people's brains enough that they were able to just accept all this Christianity. Although it probably wouldn't have been a problem in Victorian England because everybody was Anglican there anyway. But in 1990s or in the early aughts of the 21st century, you have Jewish people, pagans, you have all the people that you conned into joining. I mean, when I say you, I mean me. I did the orientations more often than not, and so someone would come in. I'm into Druidry, and I'm like, oh, you came to the right place. You ever heard of W.B. Yeats? And then they get into the higher grades, and they're like, why didn't you tell me there was all this Christianity? So then we started wearing our Christianity on our sleeve, and we'd say, welcome to the Catholic Order of the Golden Dawn, ora pro nobis, and people would run screaming, well, I don't know. Anyway, people try different ways and try different things, and so that's Golden Dawn, but it's sure is a ride. It's a hell of a ride, and you learn a lot of stuff. And there's potential for a good community, a lot of potential for abuse, especially in the whole third order thing. A book you should read is What You Should Know About the Golden Dawn by Israel Regardie. Everybody who's interested in Golden Dawn should read that book. It's and Nick Farrell. I have his books, but I haven't read them. But I know he addresses some of these abuses of power. I mean, he and I both wear the same chief adept uniform, but he talks about how the chief adept mantle can be abused because traditionally, I mean, according to Mathers, the third order is in charge, and you can't see them, and you can't talk to them. Only I can talk to them. So if you want to know what the gods want us to do,
you have to go through
me. But I'm the sacrifice. In fact, every year you're going to put me on a cross, and everybody's going to have to, put their wand on my head to revive me because I'm going to take on the sins of everyone in the order. And it's like, what did I sign up for? But at that point, all your friends are in the order, and you've invested so many years in this, and you're like, okay, well, this is obviously a lot of bullshit, but this is what I've done with my life, and what am I going to do? Just quit and move to India?
Well, you did.
I have to say that I'm having a hard time keeping my eyes open because I worked all night before coming on this call, so I might have to.
Oh yeah, we don't have to go on and on for hours. Is there anything you want to cover? Because I mean, this is ultimately for you. I mean, Ryan and I chat all day, on Messenger. It's good to catch up in person by face. But do you have any questions or things that you want us to give our 2 cents on? I mean, as much as we're able.
What do you think about Gnosticism and how it might fit with the practices I'm interested in?
Do you want to go first?
I think you're more schooled on Gnosticism, probably.
My buddy Robbie is the guy to talk to about Gnosticism. He went to seminary and he's one of those really intelligent people who read all the books. He'll read an entire book in an afternoon. Those people that are like, so they'll climb a mountain and come back down in 7 hours, and you're like, how did you do that? He's like that with books and everything. So he's the expert that I know.
My knowledge is minuscule compared to his about Gnosticism. But basically, there's the Nag Hammadi scriptures, which were discovered in the 50s, I think, in Egypt. And then there's a lot of people who take one extreme position or the other about what their place in history was or should have been or what have you. Some people will say that they were left out of the Bible because it would have made it impossible for them to turn Christianity into a control system. And when I say some people, I mean me when I was younger said that. And then on the other side, the more the church apologist position is that those gospels weren't very popular. You know, nobody was really into them. Everybody, there was like thousands upon thousands of copies. Everybody was transcribing Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. And Thomas, like, he has weird stuff that he says about women and some abstract stuff in there. And it's like, well, yeah, that's true. But yeah, I mean, the part where he says, you know, that Jesus said, when you fashion a hand in place of a hand, an eye in place of an eye, a likeness in place of a likeness, then you will be in the kingdom of heaven. Kind of makes you stop and go, whoa, that's interesting. That's sort of different. And, you know, gives one pause. But then there's other documents that were Gnostic, that were pre-Christian, that were sort of lumped into the Nag Hammadi as if they were related. And then there were some that were sort of like they added Christian characters to old Gnostic things. There's some that are obviously just not, I mean, there's the Gospel of Mary Magdalene, which people will say is great because it has Mary Magdalene's name in it. But if you read it, it's basically Mary Magdalene saying, well, when Jesus and I go off by ourselves, he teaches me this. And Peter is like, but you're just a woman, you know? And so it's like, okay, someone wrote this. I don't know if it was Mary Magdalene. I'm more one who's, you know, like I'd sooner believe the theory that Mary Magdalene was actually the one who wrote the Gospel of John, or that was her story, because it was the beloved disciple. He never identifies himself as John. Someone else calls it the Book of John. But the person the person talking in the Book of John is the beloved disciple who had their head on the breast of Yeshua at the Last Supper. That sounds a little more like it could have been Mary Magdalene to me. So you might want to considering the Gospel of John in the Bible to be maybe at the heart of Gnosticism, as far as Gnostic Gospels go. The Gospel of Thomas is really interesting. Thomas is an interesting character. He was supposed to have come over to India and established the earliest churches here. So they love Thomas down in Kerala. They have churches that are purported to be founded by Thomas in the 1st century AD here in India. And then there's there's the stuff that they made that show Feria, the Darkest Light recently on Netflix, which is fun. It's basically like they took Gnosticism and just like flipped it in a weird way. My theory was that it was a Catholic who got sick of these movies like Da Vinci Code and Jesus of Montreal, making the Catholics look dumb and evil and the Gnostics look cool and true. And so they read the Nag Hammadi and just took the worst crap, you know, or they, in their mind, they took the most ridiculous things and the most awful things and they made it into like a sort of like what Temple of Doom was Hinduism. They made this new Netflix series about Gnosticism and they call it
Oh, he froze up.
Gnosticism. They say it's about Gnosticism. Yaldabaoth, which is like no.
Oh yeah, but I think I definitely need to
like say that you worship Yaldabaoth. That's what you're missing, you know. And it's worth checking out. But yeah, when people say Gnostic, they usually assume that it's someone who believes that Yeshua is, or that Yod-Heh-Vav-Heh is the demiurge, basically the devil. People in Golden Dawn who are that type of Gnostic perspective will look at the Garden of Eden after the fall diagram that's revealed in Philosophy and say, the highest rise of the serpent Leviathan barfing out the false, inspiration, pretending to be the higher self, that must be the demiurge.
But then they say, well, but Yod He Vav He is the real God. And so they have this weird like no man's land in between Orthodox esoteric Christianity and Gnosticism that they fall into. But then they sort of like, by sort of like nudge, nudge, wink, wink, like assume that it's true with other people who also assume that it's true. But if you pin them down, they would never be able to possibly explain it. So that's Gnosticism in a nutshell. I mean, I don't know if I'm doing it justice, but I mean, I guess what I'm saying is there's more than one type of Gnosticism. There's the people in southern France who have the statue of Mary Magdalene pregnant in a boat that every year they, on a particular day, they walk up to the beach with the pregnant Mary Magdalene to remember when Mary Magdalene came pregnant with Jesus's child fleeing from persecution, and then started the lineage that they talk about in Holy Blood, Holy Grail, which was copy pasted into a silly novel by Dan Brown. Which is different from Aleister Crowley's version of Gnosticism. The OTO in America, at least, was an order that was sponsored into existence by a religion, if I'm not mistaken, called the Ecclesia Gnostica, something. Gnostic church. There's another Gnostic church that's based, I think, in Hollywood, though they might have moved to Glendale, that's not affiliated with that church, but their name is incredibly similar, and they sound funny and interesting. One time their church burned down, and at the time I was going to an Orthodox church, and they had recently taken up a collection to help someone rebuild their church that had been part of a flood or something. And so I suggested to the priest that we raise, because he's the ecumenical director for Mahoney, for Cardinal Mahoney in Los Angeles. And I was like, well, in the spirit of ecumenicism, maybe we should take up a collection to help the Gnostics rebuild their church. And he just didn't answer. But yeah, I mean, I don't know. It's interesting. The Nag Hammadi's interesting. The thing is, not Gnosis. I mean, it's like there's Buddha and there's Buddhism. There's like Buddha and there's Mahayana Buddhism. So there's Gnosis, which is like the I guess the Greek version of the word, Satori or something, or maybe Nirvana, or it's an awakening of your own God nature, where you realize that you are God, which of course is heresy, in Orthodox Christianity, various forms of Orthodox Christianity, including all the Protestant religions. So yeah, the awakening of that true self is called the Gnosis. But any group calling itself Gnostic is going to be one kind of BS or another. And I say that, I call most things BS. Most groups, I think, are at least a little bit BS. So I don't know if that helps, but I don't even, are you able to hear me? Yeah, so I don't know. Those are my 2 cents on Gnosticism. But I think that there's something there in Gnosis. I have respect for Sophia as an archetype, as a character in some of the Gnostic Gospels. I haven't read all of the Gnostic Gospels, I should say. But I am fond of the Gospel of Nicodemus. Nicodemus was, of course, the Pharisee who wasn't bad, who listened to Yeshua and he said, how shall I go back into my mother's womb and be born again? And Yeshua said, unless you be born of water and spirit, you cannot enter the kingdom of God. Unless you attain the heart of a child, you cannot enter the kingdom of God. So that was Nicodemus in the canonized Gospels. But in the Gospel of Nicodemus, he's talking about like a Greek pagan interpretation with they should do a Lord of the Rings version of it, where when Christ dies on the cross, then he immediately is down in Hades, not hell, but Hades, and then the iron gates shatter like glass, and he goes in and he frees all the souls from Tartarus and the Elysian Fields and allows them to go to Mount Olympus, and then Hades gets so angry that he becomes a god of fire. And then he's tormented, and then only the people who don't believe in Jesus are going to go there. I'm cartooning it a little bit, but it's just sort of like, okay, so you're explaining basically, the church, the standard church's version of what's that called? How things are, whatever, on the other side.
Cosmology.
Yeah. But speaking directly, more so than Paul ever did to the pagans in their own language. And it's fun to read. I don't know. But But yeah, I mean, I recommend picking up a copy of the Nag Hammadi and reading through it. But I don't know that that you can really pin down one philosophy and call it Gnosticism. But there are plenty of groups that say that their philosophy is the real Gnosticism, including Thelema.
Sure. Yeah.
So those are my 2 thoughts, my 2 cents on Gnosticism, I guess. But again, my friend Robbie would be able to run circles around everything I just said with his knowledge.
Oh, yeah. Anyway, I really do need to get going. I don't want to fall asleep in the middle of the call because I worked all night before coming on this call.
Okay, yeah, get some rest, and don't worry about remembering anything that we talked about because it'll all be up online a little bit later.
Sure.
Oh, anyway, I appreciate you having me on the show.
Oh, absolutely. Thank you for coming on, and I'm sorry I took 6 months to respond to your email.
Well,
I was writing books and stuff down in Goa at the time.
Oh, yeah, that's what I wanted to ask you about earlier, Goa. Doesn't Goa have a famous kind of party and electronic music scene?
It does. It does. A lot of drugs in Goa. We didn't really hang out in that side of it, but we could hear it. You know, it was always din, 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 until 7 a.m. Ironically, here in Delhi, where it's noisy during the day, it's silent at night, which is really nice because we can sleep. Goa, the weather never changes because it's tropical. I mean, it changes, but it's basically always kind of warm and humid, and then variations on warm and humid. So it's nice to be in Delhi where there's seasons again, where it gets cold in the wintertime, for instance. But yeah, Goa has a lot of beautiful old churches. The Portuguese came, basically it was an Ottoman stronghold until the Portuguese took it in the 1400s. And then they built a lot of churches. And then it was like the coolest place in the world to be for 100 years until it became the heart of the Inquisition in Asia. And then, you know, anywhere in any of the Portuguese colonies where someone was suspected of being Jewish, they would be brought to Goa to be put on trial and executed under suspicion of being Jewish. Then they started, you know, forcibly converting Hindus. And then they started, you know, this whole witch hunt where someone would say, you know, my neighbor looks like a good Catholic, goes to church, acts like a good Catholic, but I saw her in the back doing something Hindu the other day. So then they put them on trial and execute them. And 15,000 Hindus were killed that way more than the Spanish and the Portuguese combined in Europe. So, so Goa has an interesting and bloody history, but a lot of beautiful old churches, and that was all about 700 years ago or 600 years ago. So the people that are Goans today are basically part Indian, part Portuguese, usually Catholic, and very nice. But ever since Indian independence and then Goa becoming part of India, people from other states have gone there because it's popular, because the hippies like it, because foreigners like it, and you know, you can get drugs there pretty easily. So it's become the vacation spot for everyone in India who has money to go on vacation, and it's become a place for people from other states to go to try to set up business to try to make money. And so today the Goans call Indians outsiders. And then the rest of the Indians that are there are like, you know, Goa is part of India now, you know. And then, you know, we were there for a little over a year and we started to kind of get the feeling we will never be going, you know, even if I was not a foreigner, we would never be going. She's from Bihar, you know. So they always are like, you're from Bihar, huh? Like the only Bihar people we know are the workers in the back that are working on our second house, you know. So it was a little odd as far as that goes. But yeah, people go there to party for sure. And, you know, foreigners, what we call foreigners, which is, you know,
white people,
usually white people, but sometimes, you know, other types of foreigners, of course. There's people from Ethiopia that come here to do yoga at the yoga training centers in Rishikesh too, and they're foreigners. But and there's a lot of Nigerians here and a lot of Chinese and Japanese. They're all foreigners too. But yeah, so a lot of foreigners go there to party. And these days, a lot of Indians go to party, especially after the tech boom in around 2006. Now there's a lot more upward mobility, a lot more people kind of pulling themselves up by their bootstraps and getting work and, you know, be in the call centers, helping us all with our issues with our cell phones. And then they go on vacation and go and party and take drugs and die of overdoses too. So yeah, that's Goa. But the churches are beautiful if you can see through all the blood, you know.
Oh, anyway, I'll go ahead and sign off.
Okay.
Yeah.
On that note, yeah. All right. Well, thank you for joining us on the Esoterinerd podcast and the Praxis Behind the Obscure podcast. And we look forward to talking more with you later on.
That sounds great. Have a good day.
Okay,
You too.
Peace out.
Yeah, you have a good day. We'll have good nights.
Yeah.
Thank you, David Wright. And thank you, Ryan at Praxis Behind the Obscure, for being my guest / co-host / simulcast buddy on the Esoterinerd podcast tonight. And special thanks to Guruji, the surprise guest. Kaul Singh is not how you pronounce it, I know. But I do my best. Special thanks to Susumu Ueda, as well as Susumu's father, and his father being one of the monks at Jofuguin. The other monks at Jofuguin, whose voices you're hearing right now, for the music you're hearing right now. Also, the same track that we open with every episode of the Esoterinerd podcast. Special thanks to Camille and Kennerly for the harp transition into and out of the, conversation. And most importantly, thank you to you, the Esoterinerd, listening to this podcast. I'll close with the prayer that my father and I used to do when I was a kid. To the north and to the south, to the east and to the west, to the spirits of light among us and to the spirits below, we send out our reverent love and compassion. May all beings be happy. May all beings be serene. May all beings be in peace. Until next time.